each of us and the family for the fine mother and father we had. There's one thing that my mother and father instilled in every one of us, although at the time sometimes there was a lot of resentment, but that was how to work. And I can recall my own experience at the age of 9, or at about 7 years of age, sitting between Dad on the H tractor, had a hold of the steering wheel, and I was learning to drive that tractor sitting between his legs. At the age of 9, he put me on that tractor and plow and headed me down the furrow. And I didn't pull the plow out of the ground too good on the ends of the field. And I plowed up Grandpa Umiker's, that'd be great-grandpa Umiker now, to the grandchildren, the Prairie Road. Dad had a little conversation with me at the end of the field one day, and I was really trying to get out of plowing. And I thought that if I couldn't pull that plow out of the ground, maybe I'd get back to playing some more. I'll never forget, there was a time where I found out that day that I was going to do the work. Playing was going to come later. And I got the plow out of the ground after that. Because I came off that tractor seat, and I never did once touch the ground. Which I think is a setback for a lot of us. And now I'd like to continue with calling on my little daughter, Lisa Lynn. Where are you at, Lisa? She's going to play on the piano The Streets of Laredo, right? She's 10 years old and she's going to be a 5th grader. Thank you, Lisa. And now I'm going to call on each one of us was going to share with you a cherished memory about our childhood with Mom and Dad. And I'm going to call on Bernadine.
I don't know if you call this a cherished memory, but in our family, every so often I get teased or said, remember the Blob? Well, when I was a sophomore in high school, at prom time, there was the Dawn movie. And I wanted to go to the Dawn movie, and the name of it was called The Blob. And my dad said, you're not going. But I thought maybe I could go. So I kept bugging him, and one night before the prom, why, I was upstairs and I was we had a register. And I hollered, I was laying by this register and my dad was down in the living room in his chair. And I said, Dad, can I please go to the Blob? Please, please, you know, and he kept hollering up, no, no, no. Finally, I started bawling and carrying on and acting like a, you know what. I really was bawling. I thought that he would finally give in, but he said no, and that's it. So Eldon was home on leave from the service, and he remembers the blob.
I was always kind of looked upon a little bit to look out for my sisters. And Dad there was a little secret pact between me and my dad. And I remember Bernadine asked me one time, "What do you think of Mel Hinckley?" And I told her, I said, "Mel's a good kid. You know, he's all right." She's chewed me out a few times since then. There's one thing I recall about my dad is he was an example to me one time that affected me the rest of my life. We were combining the Spalding's land. So that when the landlord's hopper, he wouldn't get mixed up. And of course I really thought I had quite a responsibility there, you know. And he had about a couple of short rounds left in the field, and he must have had pretty close to a hopper of grain there. And that one was to go, that was his share. He just got through giving the landlord his share. And he pulls over to the landlord's trailer again and I went yelling and screaming across the field, "Dad, no, Dad, that don't go there, that goes over in the truck." And he kept ignoring me, and finally when I got there, I says, "Dad, you're putting this in the wrong place." I says, "Now we're gonna have to shovel it out of here." I says, "This ain't the landlord's share." And he says, "No, I'll tell you what I do." He said, "I always give the landlord a little bit more than he's got coming." He said, "And then I know if the landlord feels that he didn't get enough, that I gave him even more than really it was his share." And I've thought of that so many times in my life, and the honesty of it all impressed me, and I thought it was one of the finest examples, even though he wasn't trying to set any big example for me at the time, but it was one of the greatest examples a father could do for his son. Freshman, she's going to play for you the Irish wedding dance on the piano. My son Brian and Renee and Kenny's two sons Lee and Kelly. And I've always thought the folks were real proud of that, having three grandsons that are homecoming kings. And now I would like to ask Renee to share with the friends and relatives here a cherished memory.
Got a couple that I want to share. My childhood was milking cows. As you can see, there's a cream can over here. We had how many cream cans, and the folks, or I think it was a gift, or was it? They had a picture painted of the farm on it. But anyhow, my dad bought a Jeep from Grandpa and Grandma Van Bockel when they lived in Minnesota. Where's Melvin? And anyhow, they had that on the farm, and that's what we learned to drive, or at least I did. Dad turned me loose in the stubble field, and I learned to drive out there. I don't know how old I was, but anyhow, that old Jeep really got a lot of milk cows in. And we had cows, I don't know, you had to go down our pasture and through a lane, and then they were on the 40 is what we called it. and that's just kind of northwest of my place right now. But anyhow, we had a big slough just east of the barn or whatever in the pasture, and it just, in the spring of the year, when we had lots of rain and moisture, that slough was pretty well full. And there was an alfalfa field that bordered it, and we always pretty well had to go next to that, you know, to get out to that, to go onto our lane to go to get the milk cows. Well, that Jeep, we always put it in four-wheel drive, and we thought, why go the long way around? Because those milk cows usually always went through that water, which was, it kind of, I don't know, it was big and then it kind of come narrow like, but it was the deepest end at the narrow. Anyhow, we just put it on four-wheel drive and we just buzzed through there, you know, not realizing when we did that for a while, then we'd tear through there sometimes, that eventually that water was going to dry up. And then Dad would go out in the pasture and he would see the ruts in the, and then he knew what we were up to. Eldon remarks about the hard work that we did and days beyond working a lot, but I can always remember us sitting on this step at night after supper. You know, we quit at a certain time in those days, and we always sat on the step in the middle of the summer. We'd have a ball game or two, and I don't know what happened to those days. We don't do that anymore. It's work till sundown or even later. And then seeing a few of the laughs or giggles when they talked about the register above the living room in our house. In those days, we had an oil burner. And above the oil burner was a register. And we heated the upstairs. You know, the heat went up through that. Some of our kids don't know this. But anyhow, that's how we were warm in the wintertime, was this register that let the heat up. And we had a lot of Umiker gatherings. And we either went to Aunt Alice's house, Aunt Bernice's house, my folks' home, and we ate in every room of the house. I can remember having a card table set up in the bedroom, all in every room of the house. There was some place with kids and we were eating. We went through line, we went in and sat down. Well, this one particular Sunday, oh, another thing was it Thanksgiving? Our houses weren't modern at that time. And we had a nice big pot with a handle. Huh? And anyhow, that's what we used upstairs. But see, we were always supposed to dump that pot when we were going to have company. And I don't know who failed their job. I can't remember. But anyhow, there were kids playing upstairs. Aunt Alice and Aunt Bernice are just giggling like crazy. And I don't know who was playing up there or what have you, but all of a sudden somebody dumped over the pot. And down through the register onto the oil burner. And there was a little clearing out of the house. They couldn't stand it. And so when they mentioned register here and I saw Aunt Bernice and Aunt Alice, they just went down laughing. That's what happened. But that has been a memory that we will never, ever forget.
She was pretty disgusted. But actually managed to get the house aired out pretty good, and everybody come back in and went on with the Thanksgiving Day. I remember tried to cultivate the potatoes. Man, she had a garden, and she had tomatoes that she gave tomatoes away, and she had strawberries, 16-quart buckets full. I remember we picked
Sunday night and said, you know, we decided to have a program, and we're supposed to tell something funny. Well, of course, the first thing that came to mind was the pot. But Renee told that. So anyway, mine is with the cream can over there again. I can't remember which day it was, but twice a week we took the cream into Lebanon to put it on the train. And this one particular morning we drove into town, and these men were all staring at us, you know. We thought, well, what's wrong with them? And we drove into the depot and we found out what was wrong. 3 cans of cream had fell over, and we had cream dripping out onto the street. We made a little trail all the way. Anyway, well, a big trail. Anyway, we got home and we were cleaning the mess up, or my mother was, and I was standing in back of her, and she had all this water and cream and stuff out of the trunk, and she had like one big pail, and all of a sudden, swoosh, and it was all over me. And it was, what were you standing there for? But anyway, there's a lot of cherished memories, and I really feel that my children missed a lot by not growing up on the farm. There's a closeness and just a lot of good memories back there.
Person, she could have her mind in 3 places at one time. And she was on the ball, and she would, one night we were out at Aunt Ellis and Uncle Overt's, and she was visiting with Aunt Ellis, I think it was, and she stopped right in the middle of the conversation, and she turned to Renee, and she said, Renee, remind me when we get home to get 2 roosters out of the chicken coop. And she went right on visiting with Aunt Ellis. Oh, you want to tell a teacher, you want to tell my dad what I did today. She says, I just want to see your father tonight. And I thought, well, I'll bet you she probably wants to talk to him about school board business because he was treasurer of the school board. So when Dad come to get me, I said, teacher wants to talk to you. What? And I didn't like that too well, that he was so surprised. I says, teacher wants to talk to you. I think it's school board business. So he went in the schoolhouse, and he was in there about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And pretty soon he come out, and he got in, and he didn't say a word, and drove down the road a little ways, and I thought, well, got through that one. And got that old teacher where I want her. We get down, I can't remember who the teacher was exactly, maybe Dad can, but we got down the road about a half a mile, and I suddenly saw stars. And I mean to tell you, he whopped me 3-4 times, and he told me if I ever get called in the schoolhouse again by the teacher about you, he said, I'll lace you. And when we got onto the farmyard, I thought it was all over, and it was just beginning. Got out of the pickup, and we had a few skirmishes there on the yard yet, too. And he was always one, my mom and dad was always one that backed the teacher, and that's why I try to do the same today myself. I think you got to back that teacher up.
Nephews to come up here too. I'd like to ask you ladies that are sitting around these 2 tables here, if you just kind of move away, we're going to move those tables out and put some things on there. You know, oftentimes there's some cherished memories. What we have here in the middle of the floor is you can kind of place yourself in it where we're reenacting John and Marie's bedroom after a hard day out in the fields and in the garden. So we have Brenda Marie, that's Eldon's daughter, and Kelly John, Renee's daughter, and they're going to be there.
We
picked him because they were Kelly, John, Brenda, Marie.
So I think we'll just imagine now for a few moments here that this is John and Marie's bedroom, and the kids are going to reenact this.
Johnny, I've got to tell you something I've never told you before. What has he been silent?
That's it, folks. That's all it was.
Mom was quite a sleep talker or whatever, and Dad used to tell that he really thought he was going to hear something one night. And that's all she said and went on.